And we've reported on the problems many of you have had with your leasehold house or flat over the last few years. Today, Labour are announcing what they want to do about leaseholds if they were to win the next general election. We'll hear more about that in a moment. But first, let's hear from Lisa, the owner of a leasehold flat, who had it repossessed after she couldn't pay her share of an invoice for major works. She spoke to our reporter Colleen Harris last month.
I was in the process of actually selling my flat. I had a buyer, I exchanged, and November 2013, the same week I exchanged, they sent another letter, an invoice about works, and from £100,000 it went up to roughly 600,000. My buyers, they didn't want it anymore, and I couldn't afford to go to court for that and stuff like that because I was already in an emotional state.
Lisa's portion of the £600,000 came to around £50,000. By law, leaseholders must be consulted on service charges before any works are carried out. But the freeholder of Lisa's block took them to tribunal. They won the case, which allowed them to do away with the consultation and enforce the works due to the condition of the building.
Colleen Harris talking to Lisa, who had her leasehold flat repossessed when she couldn't afford to pay the service charge after work repairs were carried out. Today then, Labour has promised to end leasehold ownership of houses and flats if they win the next election. I've been speaking to Labour's Shadow Housing Minister, Sarah Jones.
Well, 1 in 4 properties in this country are leasehold properties, which are basically properties where people have bought their home thinking that they own it, but actually they don't. Every other major economy like ours has moved away from the leasehold system. And that's what we're announcing today, because actually we've seen some horrific cases, and you've covered them before, of people who are ripped off service charges, who are stuck with really exorbitant ground rents, which makes it impossible for them to sell their homes, and people who face all kinds of caps on what they can do and payments on what they can do in their own home. So we want to do something for those people, and there's 2 elements to it. The first is to stop the building of new leasehold and new flats, so changing the tenure so we don't have any new leasehold or new leasehold flats. And the second thing is, what do we do with the people who are stuck in leasehold right now? And we want to do a range of things for them. Firstly, we want to cap ground rent that they pay to 0.1% of the property, the value of the property. That's been suggested by the Select Committee, it's been suggested by Conservative backbenchers, it's a very sensible price set. We also want to make it much easier for people to have transparency over the costs that they're charged, have much more reasonable charges for service charges, and to make sure people have more redress if they want to challenge the charges that they're being given.
Okay.
And then finally, we want them to be able to buy their freehold much more easily, and we want to cap the value of that at 1% of your property. So if your property is worth, say you've got a house that's worth £250,000, you'll be able to buy the freehold for no more than £2,500. And again, that's been suggested by the Law Commission, very reasonable cost, and we think it would make some difference.
Now, you will know that last month the government announced that leaseholds will be axed for all new build houses. Is this you playing catch up?
Well, the government announced that in 2017 as well, actually. They've made 60 announcements since they came to power in 2010, 60 on leasehold, and they've changed absolutely nothing. You need to have legislation to change these things. They haven't introduced that at all. And more importantly, they're all talking about changing things for new homes, which is important. They haven't got a single plan for people that are stuck in those homes already. These are people who've been sold leasehold properties, often in a very underhand way. 9 in 10 people who own leasehold homes regret buying them, and nearly 60% of them say that they didn't understand what they were buying when they were bought it. This is serious mis-selling, and people are stuck paying. We all know, those of us that have lived in flats, when you wait for months for the lift to be repaired, and then you get given a massive bill and there's no evidence of why it should be that high. Those kind of things need fixing now. The government have no plans for that whatsoever.
Why don't you ban ground rents altogether?
Well, some people have pushed for that. You're right, and there are more radical kind of solutions that are suggested in different places.
So why not do that?
But what we've landed on is we've talked about with property lawyers, we've talked to the Law Commission, we've talked lots of different members of the Select Committee, all those things, and where we.
Have you talked to people who have to pay these ground rents? Because there is no doubt that they would say ban them altogether. We've had them on our programme.
Absolutely, and campaigns that the leaseholders have done has been tremendous, and they've really helped us get our policy together. But what we've landed on is this 0.1%, because it retains an element for the freeholder, but it's at the point at which we think it's fair. So 0.1% of the value of your property, or £250 a year or less. So that's nowhere near the exorbitant cost that we've got. We've got some people who are facing costs of £10,000 a year by the
Sure.
mid-century.
I know it's a lot less. I'm saying, why don't you ban them?
Well, because mortgage companies now have said, some of them, that they wouldn't give mortgages to people where they have exorbitant ground rent, but they would if it was 0.1% or less. That's where we've landed. It's
So ban them.
Position where we wouldn't have to be looking at paying compensation to freeholders. We want this to be, as cost neutral but as fair as possible, and we think that 250 is fair.
Okay.